Hello. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. So I just had a major win because for as long as I've been doing this, my computer, and y'all don't make fun of me when I come clean about this. My computer does my texts. It'll ding on here even if I have it silenced on my phone. And I just remembered to ask how I went about not making it do that. And I have succeeded. So I'm super thankful right now for Jim and for him walking me through this process of not being able to hear my texts on my computer. Super annoying, right? So thank you. Thank you, Jim. So glad that he can do this. Hi, welcome. Glad you're here. If you don't know this, if you're listening to this, it's a podcast, which thank you. That is how we are. That is my favorite part of this, is the podcast part. I don't love doing the videos, but I'm doing them anyway. Stepping out of my comfort zone, and I think that I got a little bit of affirmation. I don't think. I know that I've got some affirmation from the Lord about this, because I was reading an article, I guess Saturday morning, and it was about how young women in like the end of teens, mid 20s, I guess it's the 18 to 25 age bracket, about how these young women are turning to other religions. And specifically, how there's an uptick in young women joining the Muslim faith. And I have to tell you that as I read this article, I really truly felt, you know what? This is what it is like to mourn. I am mourning. I'm being like Jesus said in the Beatitudes, I am mourning these decisions that are being made, because that just makes my heart hurt. That Western culture and Christianity has pushed a whole group of young women, has turned them off and said, no, we don't want any part of that. And it makes my heart hurt, because Jesus was so supportive and encouraging of women. And he didn't discount us. He didn't tell us to just get in the kitchen. He considered us equals. And there were so many giants of the faith that were female. And so I immediately thought, Emily, you've got to keep doing. You've got to keep telling people about Jesus. And if these videos somehow help, then I'm going to swallow my pride. Where I sit here and go, okay, I don't know. Do I have lipstick in my teeth? In my teeth, on my teeth, food in my teeth. What do I have on? What's my hair doing? I have to get over that part of myself where I don't want to see. I don't want anybody to see me. I have to move past that and do what I've been called to do. So if you've never tried it, and you may have to, if Instagram, you're going to get you'll get the reels, the little snippets. In December, these will be posted, hopefully on YouTube. That's the goal. So these are going to be uploaded, and so you can watch me as well as listen to me. Congratulations to all of you. So, but also be sure that you check out the website, nothingbutfine.com, where you can find the notes that and that I have written, and if I have found any great articles, I will link them there. I always usually link the lexicon and the words that I look up in Greek on BibleHub.com. I will make that link for you there. Also, there is there'll be some links to an Amazon storefront where of the Bibles, the pens, the whatever that I may discuss and use, so that you can see look it up for yourself to see what I'm looking for. And I always encourage you to. I mean, the internet is fantastic. In some regards, right? We have all this knowledge at our fingertips. It's where that I can link stuff, but I'm one of those people that I really want to hold the book in my hand, flip the pages, underline it, mark it, kind of deep dive and do that. Because sometimes, there is no Wi-Fi. There is no internet sometimes. Very, very rarely, but it happens. So that's why these shelves are full of reference books and Bibles and who knows what else over there. So anyway, so you be sure to check out nothingbutfine.com and sign up for the newsletter while you're there. It comes once a month. It's not obnoxious. In fact, I think it's pretty entertaining, if I do say so myself. So let's jump right in, because this is going to be so exciting for you guys. I know you're going to be so happy, because we are going to talk about the rest of chapter 5. And then next week we will talk about all of chapter 6. And then the next week we're going to talk about all of chapter 7. And that will make us done with the Sermon on the Mount. And then we will pause for the holidays, for Christmas and New Year's, and I will see you back again in January. So that's what the schedule for the rest of the year is going to be. So today we're in Matthew 5, verses 21 through 48. And I grouped all of these together, and I know that each individual thing is super important. But when I got to thinking about it, and in reference to and in light of what we talked about last week, and really digging in and looking at Jesus making the statement that we have to be more righteous than the Pharisees and our teachers, and how mind-boggling that had to have been for the people that were hearing this, because to them the Pharisees were the people. Okay, so as I looking at it in reference to that, I mean, these are he's just picking the things from the law and saying, here's what you've heard, but here's what it really means. Okay, so he is saying to them that he just goes right into these laws, and the way that they knew them came from what the Pharisees and the teachers had told them. So it was skewed, right? The Pharisees and the rabbis and the priests, all of the leaders. I mean, because remember, these believers, these Jewish people, did not have a Bible. They didn't have their own copy that they kept at home. They didn't have a way to study it and dig into it on themselves. They couldn't do that. And so they were relying on these teachers to tell them what the scriptures said. And we talked about last week as well, the spirit of the law, or the letter of the law. And so what Jesus is doing here is telling us, you've got to remember what the intent was. God made these laws and these rules, and Moses shared them. And you have to remember what the intent actually was. And so Jesus is coming in here, and he says, because he says all of this, he says, you have heard, because that's how they had learned it, was they had heard it. And so he says to them in verse 21, it says, you have heard that the ancients were told, but they had not read it or seen or learned it for themselves. And so I looked up, because I think this word heard is really important. And the word here, the Greek word, is akouó, and it literally means to learn from a teacher. This part, the way that it is used in that part right there, you have heard, right here in Matthew, is you've learned it from a teacher. They have learned it from a teacher, and the teacher had, colored it a little bit, added their personal slant to it. Okay, so that's probably a little bit of what the issue that Jesus had with the Pharisees specifically, because the further it got away from the law actually coming down the mountain with Moses, the further away they got from that, the harder that they had made it to follow. Or they had not harder to follow, but they had added all these other little things to it to keep it so that they, to keep it so it looked like they were keeping the law. Does that make sense? Because remember, the Pharisees were all about the appearance and all about how it we are following this. We are following these rules and these laws. We are so pious and righteous. We are following every little letter of this law. But they weren't following necessarily the spirit of the law. So Jesus sees this and he knows this. So now he's coming back in and he's about to tell the people, here's the deal. Here's what this actually means. Okay? So their hearts were not involved. And God had had an issue with this, with the Israelites for a long time. This had been this way for a long time. Isaiah 58 I love Isaiah 58 and 59, so great. And my friend Carrie, who I learned so much from, Carrie Strickland at Truth Spring, she has been speaking on this and reading to this in a project that they've got going on. And she talked about how the righteousness and our relationship has been broken. And this is what is happening in Isaiah 58, that their relationship has been broken. They're doing things that they're not right. And then they say, God, we don't know why you don't hear us and aren't seeing about us and aren't answering our prayers. What is going on? And God is saying, because you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You have gotten this all messed up. You have added so many things. You're not actually following what I said do. You've gotten lost in this. And so God had this going on forever, for the longest time with the Israelites. So when Jesus comes, Jesus is coming to make righteousness more accessible to the people. Because he's saying, here is how you do it. Here's how you do it. He says he's showing us, he's telling us, he's showing us, he lived it. And even if we can't do it ourselves, Jesus is going to make up the difference. Okay, he expects us to try. Or he wouldn't give us the notes. I mean, he wouldn't have said, here, he wants us to try. But he is willing to make up the difference when we can't do it. It's like, our kids, we are not super consistent about giving allowances. I don't, I guess because I never really got an allowance, and probably because I'm just super spoiled and didn't really need one. But I was thinking about this because there are times, and the boys get, money and they're at the age now where nobody knows what to buy them. And so they just get money for most holidays and birthdays and whatever, graduations that Jake and Bo have had, whatever it is, they just get money. So they will, save their money up, and they'll come to us and say, I really want to buy this. Or can you, they'll barter some of the gift cards that they get and say, I want this. But it's not here at this. Can I trade you this gift card, Mom? And you give me the cash here. And when I ask them and say, well, what is it that you're wanting? And they go through and they make their case and they say, here's what I want to buy. I've got this money and I really want this, whatever it might be, whether it's a video game or whatever. And as I listen to them and they say, I've got it, I want to spend it. And it's their money. I can't tell them what to spend it on. I mean, I can, but I like to give them that little choice a little bit so that they can figure out how to work money. You know what I mean. But every once in a while, they'll say, but I don't have enough for this. And I have said, well, if their argument is compelling, and I know that they have really thought this through, I'll say, okay, if that's what you really want, then I will cover the difference. You go ahead and let's order it, and or you give me your cash and then I'll take care of the rest of it. Because I'm appreciative that they're willing to buy it for themselves and they're not just saying, Mom, I want this. Mom, get this for me. I'm appreciative of them wanting to use what they have and to buy it for themselves. And so I'll just cover what they don't have. Right? And who knows, sometimes I may just say, "Hey, keep your money. I'll get this for you." This is the same thing that God is doing. This is a very elementary analogy, but this is what Jesus is. He is the one that says, "I see what you're doing here, and I appreciate the effort that you're giving. And so it's not quite right, but I'm going to make it up. I'm covering it. I got you. I'm picking up the tab here for this." He makes up the difference. I mean, wow, I can't. Do you see what that means? And for these people that were hearing this, you got to surpass them, and they're like, "There's no way we can." And he's like, "Yeah, you can. Here's what you here are the things that you're supposed to do. Here's the character you're supposed to have. And where you fall short, I got you. I got your back. I'm going to make up the difference." You don't have to rely on what you've heard. You can figure this out and do it on your own. Here comes that taste and see again. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Keep trying, keep going, keep going. Live this way day by day. Try. Every morning, wake up, try again. Yesterday didn't go so well. Well, I'm going to do better today. I'm going to do better at this today. And so the next portion is getting into this, these thou shalt nots that we'll recognize from the 10 Commandments, okay? So the first one that Jesus says is, you shall not commit murder, and whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court, and whoever says to his brother, "You are good for nothing," shall be guilty before the Supreme Court, and whoever says, "You fool," shall be guilty enough to go to into the fiery hell. Therefore, if you are presenting your offer at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. Make friends quickly with your opponent. Okay, this idea that okay, what? Now I'm not supposed to murder, and I got that. I'm not going to. But now I really can't. What? I don't get it. How is this? I can't even be mad? I can't even call somebody a name? What in the world? I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. Y'all, before I got up here, I was so wound up about something. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. I am about to go and talk about not being angry, and I am really wound up. Right? So, but here's this great, here's the thing. This is a comment about the Pharisees, because the Pharisees said, "We're not murdering anyone." "I'm not murdering anyone. You? No, we don't murder people." But guess what? They got angry. And what did their anger lead to? Their anger led to all the plotting and scheming and, just two-faced backstabbing that led to Jesus on the cross. That's where their anger led. So no, they didn't murder Jesus themselves, but they had a hand in it, didn't they? And so this is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, and what the notes in my NIV said, we miss the intent of God's word when we read his rules for living without trying to understand why he made them. And anger here is to be angry as expressing a fixed anger or a settled opposition. And a settled opposition is positive when it's inspired by God. but it's always negative when arising from the flesh. Sinful anger, also unnecessary anger, focuses on punishing the offender rather than the moral content of the offense. That's what the Greek word used for anger here means. Okay? That's what it means. So it's not just about being not, okay, I'm not going to murder, but I can be angry. And it's not to say that you can never be angry, but this is teaching us that we have to look at the root of our anger. We have to look at the intent. Why are we so angry? And are we out for punishment and just to make somebody feel as bad as we do? You got to look at the intent. Okay? The next one is do not commit adultery. Okay, fine. I can do that. I haven't done that. Well, no, I can do that. No, but I mean, I haven't done that. I'm not committing adultery. But here's the thing. And lust is not, because he says, don't lust. You have heard it said that you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Well, that doesn't mean that you can't see someone and go, ooh, look at him. He is cute. Oh my gosh, look at that chiseled jaw. Look at those dimples. Oh, that's cute. That's not lusting. Appreciating beauty or attractiveness, not lusting. What it gets sticky is, where it gets sticky is lust is to sexually desire someone else. And you may say, but I'm not acting on it. But here's the thing. How is that? What I kept thinking of, it's like, oh, well, I mean, what does that mean? I mean, why is that so bad? And what I thought of was, but how does that help your marriage with your partner if you are lusting after someone else? And how would your partner feel if they knew you were having those thoughts? And if you don't care, there's an issue. If you do care, there's the answer. What's the intent of your heart? I read this summer, I had the, I should say privilege, but I was really nervous about doing it because I teach in the summer for 1 week on a youth retreat with my Uncle Chris. And he was like, I need you to talk about sexual sins. And I was like, why? And he goes, because I don't want to. And I was like, I feel like you are way more qualified as having been a minister for all these years to discuss this. And so I tackled it. And the best thing that I read came out of my notes in my Bible. And this was my trusty NIV. Now, today I've been reading to you from the New American Standard because it just flowed better for me. But here's the thing. Okay. In Deuteronomy 22 is talking a lot about, and specifically it talks about sexual sins all through here. And then it hits a whole portion of marriage violations. But here's the thing, and divorce is next. That's next on the list. So these kind of go together, okay? So Leviticus Leviticus 18 has a lot of do's and don'ts about sexuality, okay? Deuteronomy 22 has these too. And here's what the note says. It's so good. I mean, this is a sermon in and of itself, and I didn't write it. So, wow. So, why did God include all these laws about sexual sins? Instructions about sexual behavior would have been vital for 3 million people on a 40-year camping trip. Who's that referring to? The Israelites coming out of Exodus, okay? Or on the Exodus out of Egypt, I should say. But they would be equally important when they entered the promised land and settled down as a nation. Paul in Colossians recognizing the importance of strong rules about sex for believers because, and here's where this gets interesting, because sexual sins have the power to disrupt and destroy the church. Sins involving sex are not innocent dabblings in forbidden pleasures, as it is so often portrayed, but powerful destroyers of relationships. They confuse and tear down the climate of respect, of trust, and credibility so essential for solid marriage and secure children. Is that not the truth? If we look and think about all the things that are going on, I mean, sexual sins could be the root of so many things that we've got going on. And so many, I mean, it could be the root sin of so many other sins, right? That's a sobering thought. And it is. And I guess it's because it's so intimate and so leading into divorce, and I am a child of divorce. And the first argument that I for real got into in a Bible study as an adult, and I was the youngest one in the Bible study. There were a lot of older ladies in this group, and my mom was in it too. And so they were saying divorce awful, it's hated, but God hates divorce and all of that kind of thing, which is in Malachi, but you can't take it out of context, okay? But here's the thing, and I sat there and cried and thought, how dare they talk about my mama that way, who has since remarried. And I don't think what she's got going, I don't think this 30-year marriage that she's in now is in any way considered adultery. I argued with this woman because I know that the Lord has redeemed that divorce and perhaps probably that mistake. He has redeemed it and given my mama something even better. So don't say it's an abomination, because you can't. I just feel real strongly about this because guess what? I'm okay. And I'm actually probably better off, right? So here's the thing. Divorce in biblical times was just as rampant as it is now. A little, oh, yeah, okay, it doesn't work out. And really, the rabbis were like, it's okay if men get divorced. It's okay. Just give me a reason. I mean, now we have no fault divorce where I don't want to be married to them. Fine. I don't have a reason. I just don't want to. But they could come up with any reason. Well, she's not as pretty as she used to be. Whew. She's really kind of let herself go, taking care of all these children. I tell you what. Oh, man, she's not a good cook. I'm starving to death. See, she's trying to kill me. I can get a divorce. So Jesus is saying here, all of this comes back to the reverence and the respect that we need to have for marriage, because we should be, when we enter into marriage, it should be once and for all, and that's it. That is the goal. We can't enter into that covenant relationship thinking, well, if this doesn't work out, we can just say, too bad. We're moving on. We're going next. Because remember what it says in remember Genesis 2. This is what God says. In Genesis 2, when Eve has been created for Adam, this is what it says. For this reason, this is chapter 2, verse 24 of Genesis. For the reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and they will become one flesh. How does divorce, what do you do if you're one flesh? Are you cutting off part of your body? Okay, well, all right. If you can deal with that, fine. But what does that do for future you? How does that make you able to deal with your next partner? Doesn't that cause damage? And also, speaking, my little soapbox about women at the beginning, before we got into this is, and the men, it was rampant. And men could divorce a woman for anything that they wanted to. Women didn't have that luxury. They couldn't. And I mean, there wasn't necessarily a lot of hope for divorced women, right? Jesus is saying, don't do this. And this kind of shut the argument down, didn't it? Don't do it. You're going to be committing adultery if you do it. Yeah, there you go. To help that, just kind of shut that down. All right. Again, the intent of your heart. That's the common theme here. Again, you have heard, or the ancients were told, you shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. And one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible is Matthew 5:37. But let your yes be yes and your no be no. Because the Pharisees were saying so they could get around the law, the rules of, we're not making, they'd say, oh, by heaven, oh, on my head. Well, God was saying you don't need those. I mean, oaths in and of themselves aren't bad, but you don't need to be doing all this. When you say yes, you mean yes. And when you say no, you mean no. You don't have to make any other things about it. You just say yes. I don't have to prove it, because you know me well enough to know that when I say yes, I mean yes. And if I tell you no, I really do mean no. You don't have to wonder. That's being who you say you are, right? Again, the intent of the heart with everything you're doing. Then next to last is revenge. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This was not set up as retribution. This was set up originally as, in the Old Testament, as, let's make sure that the punishment fits the crime. Let's not get too crazy about this, guys. So this isn't actually, no, Jesus is not saying you're not going to actually pluck out your eyes. We're not going to do that. It's not a call for retaliation. Don't do this. It's not what it was intended. Oh, there it is again. It's not what this was intended to mean. And the last one here is, you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Remember, we talked about being persecuted. Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those people that are going to chase you down to cause you harm, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Love your neighbor. Love everyone. Period. We're not, it's easy to, Jesus is saying it's easy to love the people you like. The hard part is loving the people you don't. Right? Anybody can love the people you love. It's the other people that get tricky. But Jesus is like, no, you can't. That's pointless. It's pointless for you only to love your neighbor, the ones that you like. You also have to love your neighbor that you don't like. So love your neighbor, period. No matter. Right? Again, the heart. What's your intent? What did God intend when he gave these laws? And see, Jesus is saying, see, you can do these things. You can do this. You can have the righteousness that surpasses the Pharisees and your teachers. You can do this for yourself. You can figure it out. Don't feel like this is a task that you're never going to accomplish. You can do it. And remember, if you can't, I'm making up the difference. See, Jesus loves you.